Hi, this is Claire Praetzia, and welcome to another Hero Arts video. In this video, I'm going to show you how I make these shaped Christmas cards using the Hero Arts Fir Tree Infinity die set. So I'm going to start off by prepping some red and green layering paper with some anti-static powder tool because I'm going to be heat embossing the Holiday Florals bold prints on both of these card bases, and because this background is very intricate, I want to make sure that the embossing powder only sticks to where I stamp. So when I have large, intricate backgrounds like this, or even when they're not that intricate, I like to use a clear block to kind of act as a brayer and help me get even pressure over the entire background. You can use something flat and solid, whatever's handy. So once those backgrounds are heat embossed and ready to go, I'm going to use some washi tape to place the two largest fir tree dies and die cut both of those. So we're only going to actually be using the frame part of the tree. We're not going to be using those inner trees, but you can totally save them and use them for another project. I'm going to add a little bit of detail by coloring in both of those trees with some dark red and dark green. And I realized as I was making this video that I wanted to actually add some dimension by using some dimensional foam adhesive, but since I didn't kind of tape both those dies together when I was originally die cutting the embossed cardstock, it would be a little difficult to die cut the frame and kind of get the placing in the right spot. So instead of redoing the video and making sure everything was very streamlined, I decided to go ahead and show you how I got around this problem, because if you're like me, this can happen a lot. No card, I mean, at least with me, no card is, planned out perfectly from the beginning. So I thought I'd show you my kind of go around. So what I do is I take the die cut card piece that I already have. I use the red on green, which I actually shouldn't have done. I should have used the green on the green and red on the red, since the die placement was a little different, but it didn't make that much of a difference. Anywho, I placed the die cut onto the foam, and then I placed my dies over them, and I kind of felt the dies around. I mean, you do have to kind of feel to make sure that the dies are kind of in place with the cardstock, and then I take a pen and I mark the top and the bottom and the side of where the die actually is placed, and then I do it on the inside of the smaller die. And then I can remove that cardstock and then go ahead and actually die cut the foam. So that's basically I don't know, it's not really cheating, but that's just kind of a way to get around not planning ahead. Of course, if you are clever enough to plan ahead, then you can just use washi tape to keep those dies in place, and then you can die cut your cardstock, and then your foam adhesive, and everything will be perfectly placed. But for those who did not plan as well, like me, then that's a way you can still get the job done. So once you've gone through that whole rigmarole, you can actually now add your adhesive. So I like to use scrappy glue. It is a wet glue. I just feel like wet glue is a better option when you have foam, but usually wet glue can kind of warp cardstock, but I really like this scrappy glue because it's not super wet and it doesn't warp the cardstock. So I'm making sure that I really get adhesive on the little pointers of the tree, like the inside and the outside, and the top and the stump, and really making sure that I'm using a clear block as a brayer here, to really make sure that those points on the embossed card base and on the foam are really matching up and adhering well together, so there's no problems later with it peeling apart. The really nice thing though is that this foam adhesive, or this foam, has adhesive on the back, so you only need to add this detailed adhesive to one side of the foam. Now, I didn't want this card to be a window card, so I die cut two pieces of white cardstock using just the large fir tree die only, and that's going to be the front of the card, kind of where the frame is going to rest upon. However, I do want some more interest in the middle and the center of those trees, so I'm adding some black paint splatters to some wood grain vellum that I have to give it a little texture. If you have the wood grain cardstock, which HeroArts also has, I just didn't have it on hand, you could just die cut those, make your card base, your card fronts actually from the wood grain vellum, or the wood grain cardstock. But I only had the wood grain vellum at the time, so I just used that, and then I'm going to adhere that later to those white card bases. But gotta have that black paint dry first. So I'm stamping my sentiment from the Holiday Ornaments Stampin' Cut set, and I'm going to heat emboss that in gold. And then I will cut those in little strips, and we'll add those later on to the card. So once the black paint splatters have dried, then I'm going to just cut that out and then adhere it to the white card bases that I've already die cut. Do that with the red and with the green tree. And so, you know, this is a really nice part that foam already has adhesive on the backing, so that makes it really easy to adhere the frame to the front of the card. So now we're going to make the inside of our card, and this will actually make this a real shaped card that's openable. So I'm going to die cut a piece of red and green layering paper, making sure that the white, which I want to be on the inside of the card, is facing up when I'm die cutting. Once I have those both die cut, I am going to score about 1.5 inches from the top, and this is where I'm going to add my adhesive, and this is where the card will fold and open up. So if you want to, you can make your score mark on the side of the tree. I just decided to do it on the top, and I like to give myself a lot of room to add adhesive because I don't want this card to be really easily, I don't want the recipient to be able to accidentally pull it apart. So I like to give myself a lot of space to add adhesive, and I usually add adhesive to the front and the back of the card base just to make sure that it doesn't, you know, fall apart when the recipient gets it. So now that we have our card bases all ready to go, all we need to do is add the sentiment, which I've cut in strips, and I adhered those to the center of the card. And then finally we're going to just top it off with some stars. When I was making this, I thought I only wanted a star to go on the top of the trees, so I used some washi tape to adhere, or just kind of keep in place, a little square of glitter cardstock to the star confetti background die. And then I die cut the 2 largest dies from the glitter cardstock. This is kind of how you can get selective die cutting if you want to. If you just want one little piece, let's say from a background die like this one. I ended up deciding later that the center of the tree looked kind of empty, so I did actually die cut some more little stars and then add that to the tree. But yeah, that pretty much finishes up the card. It may seem kind of complicated, but if you really wanted to streamline it, you could cut out the heat embossing, just stamp a color. You could skip the wood grain vellum. There's a lot of things you can cut down on. It's just, I'm a process card maker. I really enjoy the process. So if I can make something kind of complicated, then I will. So that finishes up the card, and if you have any questions and if you have any comments, etc., you can leave those on the HeroArts blog, and you can leave them on the video. Supplies will be linked on the HeroArts blog. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. God bless.